Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy, Gsluke, with our moving day live stream for the Rocket Classic. Gonna get you guys ready for everything for tomorrow on Underdog and Prize Picks, as well as with any matchups on the sports books too. So hit me up with any bets that you want me to deep dive. We're gonna go through some of the averages, which you can see on the screen right now, a weather report as well for PGA and for Live, as well as how to attack the different prop categories for some of your exposure. So hopefully Friday treated you guys nicely. Ended up hitting on our underdog slip from yesterday for a little bit over a 3.25x payout, and also hit on both of the matchups that we pointed out, both the Hideki Matsuyama at plus 165, plus 185 on that Nikolai Højgaard. So quite a solid start to this week because we also cashed out on a round one slip. So let's continue that momentum and keep it going throughout the weekend. So anything on top of what we go through here together, feel free to go ahead and just ask away if you're curious about it, and let's get this thing rocking. So the first and foremost, we'll look at the averages, which for today played a little bit harder than round one, which was to be expected with the wind in the forecast. But surprisingly, and I did not expect this, they went with lift clean in place again, which really didn't make sense given the golf course was already dry. But if it was without lift clean in place, it probably would have played to that -2 scoring average that I was calling for. But with that, played a little bit easier, even in some of the windier conditions. So birdie average dropped from about 4.75 to 4.59 per round. Bogey average also went up from 1.97 to 2.19 per round. Fairway average, green regulation averages didn't move all that much, which was pretty predictable. I actually thought the green average might drop a little bit more than what we had for today. But luckily, that Andrew Putnam under we pointed out still went well under at that 13.5. So I would say for round three, we would expect some of these averages to improve for a variety of different reasons. First and foremost, because of the cut line. We have a lot of those lower tier players out of there. A lot of your amateurs, sponsor exemptions that are towards the bottom, even your Monday qualifiers that kind of throw off the averages, they're out of the mix after the cut line. But also moving day pins, they tend to be the easiest for round number three. And the weather conditions look a little bit more favorable too. And while there is a little bit of wind in the forecast, if we go to the HRRR Saturday, it's not nearly as strong as today. So the sustained winds cap off at about 12 miles an hour sustained. The wind gusts never get over the 20 mile an hour mark, which today in the afternoon, it was closer to 15, even 16 miles an hour sustained. And we even had gusts close to 25, 30 miles an hour. So it's going to be a little bit calmer for Saturday. Temperatures too aren't going to be as high. So it'll be a little bit more manageable in the afternoon, closer to about 80, 85 degrees at the very most, which I think is all going to help scoring. So we're going to deep dive the pins here in a second, show you exactly why. But I'd expect the scoring average to perhaps go up to like 2.5 -3. The X factor is going to be lift clean in place. While you have a lot of factors that are going to improve scoring, if they take lift clean in place away, which I mean, I thought it should have been away today, so they probably will take it away for round number three. If that's the case, then maybe it does stay at only like a -2.5 scoring average. But if it is lift clean in place, if they give them it for the third straight round, I mean, a -3 or better scoring average is what we're going to be looking at. So personally, I think the maybe more reliable categories as of now could be birdies or better, because that category is not going to be as affected by lift clean in place. But strokes, bogey averages are going to be a little bit more susceptible to that kind of effect. So for now, at least before we get the news tomorrow morning, I'm probably going to focus on birdie lines, maybe fairway and green regulation lines that aren't as dependent on that kind of news. But when these players can get the ball in hand and they can, give themselves a perfect lie when they're on the fairway cut around the green, that is going to make the bogey average go down quite a bit. So, maybe rather than being like 2.1 per round, like we'd expect with the ball in hand, maybe it might go up to like 2.25 to 2.3 per round, perhaps even a little bit higher than what it was today without the ball in hand. But I would say even if they do play it down, the birdie average is still going to go up. In fact, I would say the birdie average is probably going to be at least that 4.75 per round that we had for round one, if not with upside to get closer to 5 per round, if the pin locations are as easy as expected. And also, if they play lift clean in place, right, we'll have a tiny effect if they play the ball in hand, but it's not as big of effect for a birdie or better board. So hopefully it gives you guys a little bit of a baseline of what we saw for today. And yeah, weather-wise, it looks a little bit more favorable this time around. Next, let's go through pin locations. So hole one, you can see is on this front right corner. 4 paces from the right, and then 10 paces on, which puts it about where my cursor is right now. So it looks like a little bit more accessible than days 1 and 2. Days 1 and 2 was in this back lobe, which does give you a little bit more dispersion from left to right to work with, but this is a shorter shot. You also have some slope behind the hole that could help you spin it back. And at a sub 400 yard par 4, a lot of players are going to have wedges in here. So hole 1, I would say a little bit easier than days 1 and 2, which you're going to see a lot of this for a moving day setup. Next, we have 2, which is in the back left corner. I would say a hair harder than today, but it's about spot in line with what it was for round number 1. So this is one of the few holes that might be a little bit harder than round number 2. Next up, let's go to 3. So 3 is going to be in the back middle. This might look harder on paper, but because it's in the wide section of this green, it's actually going to be very scoreable. It's still a very short par 4, and it's kind of like 1, right, where it could play a little bit easier when it's on this front portion, but it's not by very much, right? The difference between, rounds 2 and 3 at hole 1 wasn't very much. Same thing here with 3. It's still a very accessible pin location. Just maybe not as much slope that's helping you to this kind of pin location, right? In terms of spinning it back, you're still going to be able to generate plenty of spin because it's a sub 400 yard par 4, but you do have a lot more width to work with. So if you miss to the left and right, you're not going to make very many bogeys at 3. So it's easier in a different way. Next up, we have 4, which is in the middle left side, maybe even creeping towards this back left corner, we would say. I would say it's slightly easier pin than today, just because today it was on the high spot in this front right, I'd say back right corner. It's still in the back side of the green, but now it's on a low spot, which is a little bit more gettable. Next up, we have 5, which is in the front left. This is a short par 3, and you do have some backstop to work with, and it's far enough onto the green too, where you don't have to flirt with the front edge nearly as much as if it was only like a pace or 2 over the front. Next up, we have 6, which is in the middle back. It's about where my cursor is now. So I would say a little harder than today. Again, there's going to be a handful of holes that look a little bit more difficult, but it really doesn't look that daunting. Round 1, it was in this back left corner way on top. This pin's a little bit more accessible than the very back left pin that we had for round 1, but it's it's not in the low area like today. The low area pin was the easiest that we're going to see there. Next up, we have 7, which is your second par 5. It is a front pin location. This one is going to be an eagle fest, just like round 1. Round 1, it was on this front right corner. Now it's on the front left. I would say that short-siding yourself in this front left bunker, though, could be a little bit of a no-go, but all the other up and downs are going to be relatively straightforward. Next up, we have 8, which is a short par 4. That is a front right pin location, which is about where my cursor is now. This is in the low area. This is also a much easier pin location than today. So far, we've got like 4, maybe 5 easier pins. We've got 2, maybe 3 that look the same, if not a little bit harder. Next up, we've got 9, which is the long par 3. This pin location is a hair easier than today. It's about where the cursor is now. It's not as protected by the bunker because you don't have to carry one to get to this right side pin location. But it's about the same distance as today, so I don't really think it's going to play all that much different in either direction. Next up, we have 10, which is a middle left pin, kind of siding towards the backside. I would say about the same difficulty as today. It does bring this left bunker into play a little bit more, but today it was bringing in that right side bunker. So not a big difference there either. Next up, we have 11, which is a back left pin. Today's pin was the hardest that you got at 11, and they actually tipped it out, which surprised me. They moved it up a little bit, right? So they could have played it the whole way back here like they did for round 1. They moved it up ever so slightly. This back left pin, it's going to play easier. I mean, even if they fully tip it out this time, it's probably going to play a 10th, maybe even 0.2 strokes easier. If they move it up again, which for moving day, it's worth noting that the par 3s, oftentimes they will move up, and they're not going to move up the ones that are 150 yards, right? Like that's already short as hell, but they might move up the one that's 230 yards to give these players a better chance to score. So don't be surprised if that's the case at 11. And if they do, the scoring average here would improve rather drastically from round to round, especially after the cut line. Next up, we have 12, which is on the front right corner. This is one of the harder holes on the golf course. And this front right pin is the easiest pin that you get at this hole. It's a front pin, which is great because the miss on a long par 4 is oftentimes right in front of the green. And the thing that makes this right side pin easier than the left side than like you had today is this false front isn't as play as much on the right side, right? You're a little bit further away from all of that slope, so you don't have to worry about it gobbling up your golf ball. Next up, we have 13, which is in the back right corner of the screen. It's up on a little shelf on this corner, so I would say a hair harder than today. That's, I think, hole 3 at this point, where we can say it's definitively going to be a little bit trickier. 14 is in the back left corner. It's a slightly easier pin than today. It's on the back shelf, but it's on the much bigger shelf on this green. Today, I told you about how getting up and down of that bunker could be pretty difficult. Chris Kirk didn't have an issue with it. He is a superstar player around the green, but you had a lot of people that were missing to the right, hitting it down the slope, and then with 40 footers back up, and some of them even 3-putted it for a bogey. So I would say over here towards the back left corner, you still have some difficulty. It's not as easy as if it was on the lower spot. Like middle of this green would be a super easy pin, but they're never going to use middle of the green at 14 unless it's the Pro-Am. Over here, though, it's like the second, maybe third easiest pin. It's I would say the one they used today was probably the hardest at 14. Next up, we have 15, another short par 3, so they're probably not moving this one up. It's a front right pin location, so it's about where my cursor is now. I would say a little easier than today just because you do have some slope behind the hole, which you can use to spin it back closer, and even some slope towards the very front of the green, which will propel your ball closer towards the pin. Next up, you have 16, so a longer par 4. It's not a hard hole, but it's a little bit harder than most around here. Towards, what is it, back right corner? Yeah. So, sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. Good thing I double checked that. 16, yeah, back right corner, about where my cursor is now. It's about the same length as today. I would argue that it's a little bit easier though, just because it's not, you don't have any bunkers towards the right side of that green, but it's probably going to play about the same at 16. Yeah, good thing we checked on that one. And then 17's back middle, so that's the one I almost thought we were looking at. That's about right here. It's reachable in 2, especially because it's been playing downwind this week. And let me check the wind direction. Yeah, it's about the same kind of wind direction tomorrow. So they're going to be reaching that in 2. They're going to have a lot of room to run up shots. I think you're going to see some eagles at 17, perhaps even more than today, just because it's easier to get close to those back pin locations on the par 5s. And then finally, 18, your finishing hole is a front left pin. It's much easier than today. And I know it looks like the same because it's also a front side pin location. And some might even say like, oh, this false front is a little bit more in play, which is true. The bigger miss here, and what really caught people off guard at 18, you saw some doubles today, is when they hit it down in this ditch because there's rocks down there. The lies are horrendous. You can end up with lost balls in this natural area in front of the green. Now that it's on the left side, you don't have to worry about that. So the around the green is going to be easier. That's going to make a big difference with the scoring, but you're also going to see more birdies to that pin location because people can be more aggressive. They're freed up when they don't have to worry about that potential double bogey towards that front right corner. So don't be surprised at all if the scoring average at 18 is like 0.2 to even 0.3 strokes easier than round number 2. So overall, looks like a moving day setup, some risk reward holes where you can get yourself into trouble if you aren't careful. And then, of course, some really easy pins, and particularly easy pins on some of the more scoreable holes like the par 5. So that's why I think the birdie average is going to go up at least a little bit. I think there's potential for it to be close to 5 per round if they go with lift, clean, in place. A lot of that is going to depend on whether the course gets hit with a storm tonight. But based on what they were saying on the forecast and on the broadcast, I should say, didn't look like it was forecasted to bring much rain. So if that's the case, maybe it is closer to like 4.8, 4.85 birdies are better per round, but definitely a hair higher than what we had for days 1 and 2. So that being said, let's dive into these boards now and get an idea of some of our exposure. And it doesn't look like PrizePicks has their entire board up yet. There's a chance, and I have a feeling this is why they haven't posted yet, is because they're waiting for confirmation on whether it's lift, clean, in place or not, because that would have, again, pretty big impacts on the bogey averages and some of the stroke stuff, but birdie averages maybe not as impactful. So you can see they posted a birdie or better matchup board. Maybe they'll post some regular birdie or betters here in a second. I would imagine that they at least post some strokes, some other categories beforehand, even if we don't have that news. But luckily, Underdog has us taken care of. And you can see I've already got one prop that I'm eyeing up. So let's start with the Cantlay prop and then see what we can mix in with it. So let's start with Cantlay here, who is one of the top birdie makers that we have in this field. So just to show you the stats for 2025, he hasn't even had that good of a season, yet he still has been posting a lot of birdies or better. You can see number 17 on tour, and he's played all the majors. He's played at all the more difficult courses at the signature events as well. So that number 17 is rather impressive compared to some of the other guys around him. Like, for example, in Isaiah Salinda, Trey Molinax, they haven't played any of the hard tier events, like maybe one or two out of the entire schedule. Cantlay's number 17, right along those sort of players, and has played US Open, right? At Oakmont, has played at the Genesis, has played at Torrey Pines this year twice, in fact, because of them doubling up at that golf course. That's why that's a little bit more impressive than those other players. So I like that for Cantlay. I do think the average goes up to nearly like 5 per round. And then what else we have to consider is he has an early tee time. So he's going off at 7:25 a.m., which is one of the first few groups off. I think he's like the fourth group off of the day. And it's going to be a little bit less windy early. Also, those players are going to be more aggressive. They're the players that have to make up more room to get towards the top end of the leaderboard. And somebody like Cantlay, right? He doesn't care about finishing in like 30th or even like 25th. He has eyes on trying to get into that top 5, top 10. So I'm expecting him to be very aggressive, maybe to have slightly less wind as well, which at least for his first half, maybe his first 9 holes could be a factor. It's going to kick up by the time he gets to the back 9, because you can see by 9, 10 a.m., it's starting to get closer to that 10 miles an hour sustained. But like for the first 4 or 5 groups off, and he happens to be one of those players, there could be a slight advantage. So, and by the way, if you watch the fantasy stream, it is 2 sums off of 1. So maybe a little bit surprising that they went with that, but that is the situation. So for fantasy, by the way, I did take some of those early guys for leverage and as potentially with better weather conditions than the players going off later. And at 5.5, it just feels it feels wrong to want to take an over on somebody at 5.5 birdies. But if there's a golf course and there's a situation to take this kind of an over, it would be here with Patrick Cantlay, because not only is it one of the easiest golf courses on tour, he's a player that has the kind of mindset that we're hoping for, right? He's going to have to be aggressive. He's not going to be, taking it conservative on really any approach shots, you would think. And also, he's got the favorable side of the conditions going for him as well. And if we take a look at the sportsbook odds, this is just the cherry on top at this point, but he's like minus 130 towards the over. So you're talking about a whole bunch of data points that are calling it slight value. And that's the first one that I found, because I didn't have much time before lock to go through these boards. I was doing a little bit of window shopping. It looks like pretty similar pricing to days 1 and 2. Like Hideki's at the same strokes line. Birdie lines are at 5.5 for studs, juiced towards the under in a lot of cases. Not so much with Cantlay because he's one of the best players in the field, but kind of the exact same kind of thing we had for Thursday, Friday. Strokes lines, yeah, all about 68.5 for your studs. And then you have some of your like mid to lower tier players at 69.5 strokes. And, if I think the scoring average is going to be minus 2.5 to minus 3, then you'd have to think that makes a lot of sense, right? If it's a minus 3 scoring average, maybe you have guys like Pot Geiter slightly higher than that, just because they're not, above average players. They're probably above average players in this kind of field. Whereas your 68.5s on your studs like Hideki, Ben Griffin, Cantlay, etc., makes sense as they're well above average players. In fact, like a stroke and a half better than that field average. So I tend to agree with the pricing in general, is I guess what I'm saying. And it's pretty similar to the first few days, but there's still value that we can find. And just like today, Hideki went off when he had those better conditions and he had to be aggressive to trying to get into contention. That's kind of the idea that we have with a Patrick Cantlay there. So, and because this is a birdie fest and I don't love the idea of taking a whole bunch of fades, there were a few fades that I mixed in today that ended up working out. But in general, I do like the idea of playing more positive stance plays than negative stance plays. And if I'm going to try and find another positive stance play, I kind of want to find it for somebody teeing off early. So like an Akshay Bhatia could be an option for that. I do want to see what his odds look like on DraftKings. So let's see. Does he have a strokes line posted? So he does. He's one of the first few tee times out as well. So that's kind of the idea of why I was looking at him. But he's juiced towards the over. So, on a site like Underdog Prize Picks where you're taking like minus 130 inherent juice, it's not the best to play that minus 130 inherent juice when he's minus 130 in the other direction on a lot of these sports books. So, maybe the better way to go about it would be to try and take an over on birdies. The unfortunate part here is because of the way that Underdog sets up their payouts, it's pretty trash if you were to mix these two in. A 2.78x payout, it's about what you'd get on Prize Picks for 2 even money props. And Akshay is juiced towards the under, like you can see with this sort of multiplier. In fact, in terms of his birdie or better line, I just want to see exactly where they have him. So yeah, he's minus 145 towards the under, which I'd probably have him closer to even money just because he has to be aggressive. He is an above average birdie maker too. So if you guys didn't catch Bati on here, he's number 20 on tour when it comes to his birdie or better percentage. So like, I think it could make sense to still take his over, but the value just isn't great on a site like Underdog. So that's why PrizePicks, which just posted their board, could be the better site to take it on. In fact, you can see Cantlay is at 5.5, and I think Bhatia might even be at 5, at least if Luck's on our side. Let's see. Yeah, no Bhatia prop, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping they'd post them at exactly 5 because of that juice towards the under. But like, we could always try and find something on PrizePicks instead to mix in with Cantlay. So let's throw Cantlay back into the shopping cart just to see if there's any discrepancy across these two sites. Let's quickly glance through this PrizePicks board. Any rivals on Underdog? If they have them posted, we can go through them. They haven't had them up for a while. He said, you going to combine PrizePicks slip with the Underdog free square or UFC free square? I don't get any promos at this point, man. If you're limited on these sites, you don't end up getting promo value. And for somebody like myself, like even if I do get that promo, it's like 0.05 units, like legitimately, right? If it's like a $5 max or $20 max, it means next to nothing. So no, I'm not going to combine anything with the UFC thing because it means nothing to me. But of course, right, if you find your favorite prop on here, do you want to do so yourself? You can. I know to a lot of you guys, it probably would be more meaningful with the units, but yeah, I don't even bother with those. First off, I don't even have access to them on a lot of my accounts because they're taken away when you're a long-term winner. And second off, it means nothing. Like even if I had access to it, it's like peanuts. It's just not even worth me mentioning on my site. Like you can obviously take advantage of the promos you get, access to, but not something I focus on, to say the least. But let's take a look at this board. So 68.5 for Cam Young. That's kind of interesting. It looks like the board is pretty much spot in line with the sportsbook odds, at least based on what I've seen so far. There's more selection on PrizePicks though, which is kind of nice here. Like we've got more guys at 68.5 that are available. I don't hate the fact that the wind is going to kick up a little bit. So like we can obviously still look at some of these later tee times as a potential pairing. They've got Knowles at 70. The disrespect. He's got the highest projection of anyone on the board. And what did they have Zach Johnson at? I just want to see. Was he 69.5? Yeah. The disrespect putting Knowles at 70 strokes. That's kind of wild to have him 0.5 higher than an old senior tour guy like Zach Johnson. But overall, I don't disagree with the pricing that much. I don't think it's like too off in either direction, at least for strokes. The thing is we don't know about the lift, clean, and place though. So the reason why I started my search with birdies are better and why it's probably the prudent thing to stick with right now is because we don't have that information. Because I mean, if they end up playing the ball down, I don't think it's like the biggest effect ever. It's probably like a half a stroke difference, I'd say, from like, probably the -3 scoring average. It would be with lift, clean, and place. Maybe it'd be like a -2.5 scoring average if they go without it. But there could be some fade value then that would make sense because like they have Harry Higgs at -2.5. That's what the 69.5 strokes line is. And I hate to bash him because he's one of my favorite characters on tour, but like he's a below average player. Like he could be a potential fade spot. And like if you could find somebody like Harry or of his talent level at 69 strokes, like Chan Kim, for example, like he hasn't been playing that well recently. Like there could be some fade value if they go without lift, clean, and place. But for now, I think the best thing to do would be to hold off on that just because we don't have that information. I do want to look at the green board though. So the average today was about 13.3 per round. After the cut line, I would expect it to go up a little bit. Also with the slightly lower winds, it'll probably be at least 13.5 per round. So 13.5 is pretty much the field average for a lot of these players. So if we can find somebody that's an above average green and regulation percentage player, then they could make some sense for an over here. But I know Cam Young is pretty dog shit in the category this year. I do want to look at some of these other guys like Fitz though. He's, I'm assuming, pretty crappy too. He hasn't had the best season. So yeah, number 92, about average. So probably about an average play at that field average. I want to look at Højgaard, though. I'm going to look at Grazerman, and I want to look at Hideki. So let's start with Nikolai. So I guess Nikolai doesn't qualify because he doesn't have enough rounds at this point, which kind of sucks. I wish we would have had that to go through. Let's look at Hideki. Hideki's number 86. And then we wanted Grazerman. We'll look at Knapp, and we'll look at Thor Bjornsson, too. So let's go Thor Bjornsson, Knapp, and Grazerman. So Thor Bjornsson's number 11. He has played some of the easier events, though, so you have to take that with a slight grain of salt. Let's go Grazerman, number 107, and then let's go Knapp. Knapp's number 62. So, like, Thor at 13.5, like, that kind of stands out as, like, it could be decent value. I'm slightly thrown off by the field strength. He definitely hasn't been playing in all of the big time fields. Just to double check myself on that, maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. I know he earned himself into a few signature events, so I'm just going to bring up Data Golf so that we can confirm exactly what fields he's been playing in this year. So there's Michael Thor Bjornsson. I know the majors are lacking for him, but let's see what else he's been working with. So PGA Championship at least. Did play some easier events like Byron Nelson, Punta Cana. That's going to throw it off a bit. Puerto Rico Open's going to throw it off a bit. And yeah, not a lot of the more difficult courses that we have on tour. So though it looks really good on paper at number 11, I would trust somebody like Knapp a whole lot more. And just for comparison's sake, right? Knapp is above average in the category, number 62. It's not elite, but it is above average. He's played in all the big time events. He didn't play in the US Open because he didn't get in, but he played PGA Championship. He's played in a lot of the signature events this year, Players Championship, Genesis Invitational, especially early on, like Farmers Insurance Open. That was at a very difficult golf course. So let's take a look at his sportsbook odds, which I don't know, that Draftkings doesn't seem to price these boards very well for greens. So I don't know if we're going to take it that seriously. Let me see what they have for Thor Bjornsson, if they have anything for him. Do I have to type Thorb? I guess he doesn't have a line posted, is what that's telling us. And then let me look at guys like Hideki and like Grazerman. So Hideki minus 125 over. Okay. See, Grazerman's also minus 125. And those are guys that aren't even that good at hitting greens regulation. By the way, just to check, what was Hideki again in the category? He was number 86. And the thing is about Hideki is we know that he's played all the big time events. So like, for example, he's played in all the majors. He's played in like Memorial, which is one of the hardest golf courses out there, Players Championship, API. Like that's one of the hardest golf courses in the entire world. So Hideki at 13.5, he is that minus 125 towards the over. Like maybe that could be a pairing that we take. So like out of everything we've seen so far, it's probably my favorite pairing, but we're going to do our due diligence in all these different categories. I want to go to birdies are better next because we didn't fully go through that one before. It's the one that I feel like we have the most information for. So you said Knapp 61 was insane to watch. His swing is beautiful. Yeah, man, I got to see him shoot 59 at the Cognizant this year. I followed him for the last 12 holes of his 59. It's syrupy. I mean, it looks like he's like a half second behind contact. Like his body is so far ahead of the club head when he's on his downswing. But then by the time he gets the contact, it completely catches up. It's kind of mind fucking to watch, especially if you're used to seeing some of the more like violent swings on the PGA Tour. But it's yeah, like you said, the swing's beautiful. It's very unique in the way that he creates so much lag that it's like jarring to see. But it also teaches a lot of us how to create power because Jake Knapp, I mean, he hits the 360-yard drives today, 350 regular out there, and he doesn't swing hard. I mean, it's literally looks like completely effortless, and he hits the ball further than just about everyone. So if you're looking to get longer distance off the tee, guys, just create that lag that you see with Knapp. Hard to do. You have to have some flexibility, but let's say that you may be like a smaller stature person. Not so much with myself. I'm a little bit bigger, but I am extremely flexible. It's just in the genes. A lot of gymnasts in my family before me. So if you can create that lag, if you can get a long langward backswing and create that lag on your downswing, that's kind of like a cheat code to get some extra distance. But let's look at this birdie board. So 5 birdies for like an Eric Van Rooyen actually might not even be the worst play either. And I'll show you why in a second. He's towards the top of the birdie or better list. But we got Hostler, Riley at that same sort of number. Keegan Bradley, Cam Young at 5.5. I do slightly prefer guys like Cantlay just because of the tee time aspect, right? Going off before the wind kicks off is maybe like a quarter to even a half a birdie difference for some of those players. I do want to look at Keegan and his odds for birdies are better because he does also have an extremely early tee time. He's going off 1 tee time behind Cantlay, and he's minus 120 towards the over. He's not as elite when it comes to making birdies, though. So I'll show you guys that. I think he was number like 20 something, if memory serves me correctly. But just like Hideki, He's somebody that plays in all the big field events. So yeah, number 36 actually, and birdie or better percentage. But Keegan Bradley, just like some of the other elite tier players, has all the hard golf courses included, all the majors included, Memorial Tournament, Players Championship, API, you name it, and he's still towards the top end of that list. So, it kind of feels boring, but like these 4 props so far kind of feel like my favorites. I'll show you the Eric Van Rooyen one too. I told you guys I'd show you his birdie or better percentage. Number 18 on tour. Now, the thing that makes it a little bit sketchier is that he is not played in all the hard events. So just kind of like some of the other players we pointed out, he's played in 2 of the majors at least, but he didn't make it into Augusta. You don't see him playing like every single hard course, but he did play at Farmers. He did play at the Players. He did play at the PGA Championship and US Open, for example. So number 18 can't be completely overlooked. And the thing that really, I think, still makes him a decent play at 5 is the super early tee time. I mean, he's going off at 7:05. That's even 20 minutes before Patrick Cantlay is. So if there's going to be a slate weather advantage, he's going to be in a prime spot to be able to take advantage of that. So yeah, these 4 props are the early leans so far, early candidates to be on our prop slip. Let's see what else we can work with, though. So 5 for a lot of like mid-tier players, like Ryan Gerard. He's been a pretty good birdie maker this year. See exactly where he stacks up. So number 90 on tour, above average. He's been having a really good ball striking week, though. I want to say, does Nikolai qualify at least for this category? I guess not, huh? So yeah, he doesn't qualify because he played so much on the DP World Tour this year. He's split between the 2 at this point, so I guess that's why he's not going to show up on that list. I'm going to look at Echeverria because that could be one. Echeverria is a really good putter. So where does Etch show up? Etch shows up at number 49, and Echeverria does play in the signature events, or at least most of them. If I could click the right letter, we can get to it quicker. Let's see. So yeah, he's played in the 3 majors. He's played in the Players, Genesis, Pebble Beach. I mean, pretty much all the different events. And he's still top 50 in the category. So like that could be another over that we'd consider at that sort of number. And yeah, going through and actually making sure that these guys have been playing in the kind of events that we're looking for is something that I'm really starting to incorporate, because I've come to find that it has rather drastic impacts on certain guys. Like guys that play like a variety of different events, not so much. But if you're somebody that like only plays in elite tier events like Victor Hovland, you actually look a lot worse than you are on paper. Like you look like you're a mid to slightly above average player, but Victor Hovland is elite of all elites on tour. I mean, he's won this year. He's been in contention at major signature field events. So like it can be really misleading on guys like that. I don't know, these 5, and the thing is the correlation on those 5 make them unplayable, right? So we couldn't like play that 5-man slip together or anything, but maybe we can split these 5 into a 2-man slip, maybe a 3-man slip that makes a little bit more sense with the payout structure. But as you guys can see, I'm not really looking at a whole lot of fades until we get that news on lift, clean, and place, because if so, I guess the spot to do it would be on strokes. But these other categories like birdies, greens regulation, for example, like it's not as impactful for us. So for the sake of the live stream, I am going to narrow this down to 2 props that we're going to mix in. I'm going to take Hideki out because I don't trust him. He's just too much of a wild card for my liking. He's played well, especially today. He played extremely well. Kind of feels like he's due for that round where you just go, what the hell, Hideki? Like, what's going on? So I'm going to throw him out of there. That's just kind of like a gut feel thing. I definitely want to play Cantlay. That is my favorite out of the 4 props that we have here. Question is who do we want to pair up with him? Eric Van Rooyen, Keegan Bradley, or Nico Echeverria? My gut instinct here is to go to a Keegan Bradley, partially because he's got such an early tee time. It's really him or Eric Van Rooyen. So I'm going to take Etch out just because he is going off a little bit later. I don't think it's the end of the world. I'm still going to have positive stance plays on guys that are teeing off later, but just because we're being picky, right? We're making this the stream slip, the one that we're putting out there in public for other people to tail. Let's choose between the 2 early starters. So EVR, I think we kind of go Keegan, right? And the only reason I say that is I do think Eric Van Rooyen sets up well tomorrow morning, but it sketches me out that he hasn't played in all the hard events. While Keegan Bradley can say that, and the push equity is nice on somebody like Eric Van Rooyen, but the push rolls on a site like Prize Picks aren't the most favorable. They kind of screw you in a lot of cases. They don't give you the best value. Like, for example, if Cantlay hit and Eric Van Rooyen pushed, I believe that would have only paid 1.25x on Prize Picks, which is like a scam. I mean, that's your money back plus a quarter unit for getting one. It should be at least 1.5x. I think that's probably the reasonable payout on a push and a hit, but they only give you 1.25x. So let's go with those two, because if he gets to 5 and he goes under, so be it. I'd rather get the slightly better payout structure and not have to worry about the tie as much. And Keegan has more over equity than Eric Van Rooyen, like for sure. Like Keegan's got the better form heading in. He won last week. He hasn't even had the best first 2 rounds, yet he still made the cut at a Birdie Fest. That shows you just how well he's been playing in 2025. Give me those two as the slip that we're going to take here for the stream. So, of course, guys, for all the exposure that I'm taking on Underdog and on Prize Picks, you guys can find that on the Patreon page. And something else we could do here, we could actually take out Keegan and go to some live golf stuff. I guess if you want to keep it to like an only PGA slip, you go with those two. But I was looking at the live golf stuff before, and we can talk a little bit of stuff over here. So let me actually bring up the stat averages real quick. I do have those calculated on my Patreon page. I'm just going to bring up the screenshot I have real quick to give you guys that information. So 1 second. Just got to scroll to find that real quick. Here we go. So here's the live golf stuff. So it played over par, which we thought. It's a hard golf course, a long golf course, firm and fast too. Played 1.72 over par, which is a 73.72. And birdie average was only 3.26 per round. So unlike round 1, where the board was way too low, right? And that's why we took some fades, some overs on strokes for the first day's action. Now they've completely accounted for it. So they've got pretty much the whole board at even to over par. They do have some of your studs like Bryson at -1.5. John Rahm at -2, which is just kind of respecting their games, which I tend to agree with at this point. But some of the inaccurate drivers around live are very susceptible for overs on strokes. And the reason for that is this golf course has a lot of natural areas, has a lot of fescue spots where you have lost balls, because you don't have a whole bunch of fans that live. I mean, let's be honest about it, right? They don't necessarily get the biggest crowds around those golf tournaments. And on top of that, they don't have all kinds of volunteers on every single hole. They do have some volunteers, but not as many as they have on the PGA Tour. So the result of that, and I saw it with guys today, I was watching the golf tournament this afternoon, is they couldn't find a lot of tee shots, and it was pissing players off. Guys like Joaquin Neiman had it happen. He made a 10 on a par 5. I mean, just a tough scene for some of the players out there. So like, if we were going to take any props here, they have adjusted the board a bit. It would maybe be somebody that's at like 72.5 in somebody that's inaccurate with the driver, because if you're missing fairways around here, like I said, you are just absolutely screwed in some cases. So these like 73.5s, like I don't really want to take for the over, because that's 1.5 over par. Like I know these are below average players. Like you can make an argument for fading them, but I feel like we have some guys on here at 72.5 strokes that aren't that much better than the average on live. And in fact, in some cases, might even be below average players and certainly below average drivers. So I want to look at Arnaban Lahiri first. I know he's been playing decent this year, especially last time out. He finished T2 at Virginia. So that's probably the reason for him getting that kind of respect. But he's usually like an average player. So like, I mean, average here is 73.7. So maybe you can lean on that for an over. I'm looking for somebody, though, that misses a lot of fairways. So let me actually bring up the Live Golf website, and let's see who some of the most inaccurate drivers are in the Live Tour. Because if we can find somebody that just sprays it, that would be fantastic. Let's see. Let's go to stats. Let's go to fairway percentage. It's going down, bar down. He said, just joined. Have I been talking... You have been talking freeze off both sides, but you think they're starting with 2s? Yeah, we touched on that before. I tweeted it out. Also, there's a comment on the Ship It Nation live stream, man. We know that, but thanks for the heads up, I guess, making sure that we're on top of it. We have already addressed that, though. And it's 2 sums, so the first like 2 hours of tee times could see an advantage. But kind of surprising they did that. With 86 players making the cut, they normally do 3 sums. But I guess because it's summer and we have a little bit more daylight, they're able to squeeze them all in. So yeah, check out the comment on the other live stream for that. I gave a little bit of a PSA on exactly how I'm handling that. And I also tweeted it out as well. So if you want some of the extra thoughts on the fantasy side of things, man, you can check that out over there. But looking at the bottom end of the accuracy list, like Cam Smith is 3rd from last in the category. And he, of course, was one of the players that we had on the board. A lot of these guys we don't have lines for in prize picks. In fact, like Leishman is the next one that I see there at 40th. Who else? Brooks withdrew, so we're not going to have him to bet on. Same thing with Matthew Wolf. He also withdrew before the event ended up starting. Like a Patrick Reed, not that accurate off the tee. Ended up fading Brendan Grace today. That was a prop that ended up hitting for us, which was nice. So based on what I'm seeing here, I hate to fade Cam Smith, but like kind of want to based on like how he's hitting the ball off the tee. And I just want to double check on how he played today. I wasn't completely on top of his round in particular, but based on the fact that I haven't seen him yet, and yeah, he shot +3, couldn't have been too good. And it was partially because of one hole where he made a triple bogey. And I'm guessing that this is a lost ball. Let's see. Yeah, first tee shot, second. Let's see what he did here. Hopefully this doesn't give me like any sort of copyright thing. Hope not. So he's in the deep stuff. And what did he do? He hit it into the deep stuff again. I'm assuming. Come on now. Any second now, Cam. Yeah. So that's the issue with this golf course, right? Is you get into stuff that is literally like a foot deep. So he ran into that ticking time bomb already, and he's at 72 strokes, which is even par. So maybe he's like not the kind of guy I'd want to fade. But these guys at 72.5 that aren't elite tier players, like especially like a Leishman kind of stands out. Like he's not the most accurate player. He has had a good season. So to show you guys the stats this year, he's been one of the better players actually on Live the entire year, but he is missing a whole bunch of fairways, which is problematic around this kind of course. And just to check on where he ended up, he also shot +3 into, let's see, what did he do at 16? Yeah, so that's just a water ball. You can actually see it there on the left side. He obviously hit his tee shot into the water and had to drop the way back here. You can see where these awful drivers of the golf ball are really getting into trouble. And there's 54 players on Live, so I mean, the average score, only 25 players shot +1 or better. So, I mean, taking somebody to shoot over par is, I think, pretty reasonable. And I have to look at the weather. Actually, I haven't checked the weather yet for Maridoe, which is, of course, very important for this sort of a golf course. And it looks pretty much the exact same as today. So it was in that like 10-mile-an-hour range for most of round one. It was also a little bit gustier as well. So maybe slightly less wind, I would say, on this forecast, at least based on what we actually ended up getting at the Live Golf Course. So yeah, at 72, let's look at Paul Casey. What does his accuracy look like? So number 6, so he has been hitting a whole bunch of fairways, but he's had a pretty terrible year, if memory serves me correctly. Let's just double check on that, I guess. So yeah, I mean, losing strokes in most fields. He had a few decent events in March where he went 5th and then 10th in back-to-back starts. But he does hit fairways. So if we're looking for somebody to fade because they're going to get into big trouble, maybe he's not the best option for that. Let's look at Harold Varner III. He could be an option. I know he used to be inaccurate, but maybe he's more accurate now. Number 12, so he actually has been hitting some fairways. Let's just look at the form for Harold. He's also been a little bit better this year, too. He was horrendous last year. He was like one of the worst players on that side. Now he's gaining strokes on average on the Live Tour. So, yeah, I think there's better options that we could fade at that sort of projection. So based on what I'm seeing here so far, I mean, Kokrak 73 could even be a look. And I know it's kind of awkward because he's at that even number, but Kokrak is very inaccurate off the tee, at least historically is. And let's look at the form. Yeah, form losing strokes on his last 4 events. Of his last 8, he's lost strokes in 6 of those 8 starts. And I want to take a look at his driving accuracy. So number 28, so he's about average on the Live Tour in that category. Not as crappy as what I was thinking, but look at that. Average on the Live Tour is only 58% accuracy. They don't hit many fairways over there on that Live Tour, huh? Especially like Mark Leishman, Patrick Reed, like those sort of guys that are down at like 53, 54% driving accuracy. I'm kind of torn on this, right? Whether we just take these two positive stance plays and we correlate it and run it that way, that could be the way to go about it, and then just take some of the Live Golf stuff for other slips. But there is power in doing this, and let me show you the power of doing so, right? So like this 2-man slip would be 2.75x if we mixed in those two together. If, for example, we took Keegan out, and let's say it was the Jason Kokrak that we took for the over at 73 strokes, it would give you a full 3x payout. And just to go back, and I actually want to double check what this is going to be. It could be a 6x payout, but I think it's going to be 5.5x, but let's see what it is. So yeah, it's a 5.5x payout if you were to like take the two and then mix in one of the live golf props, which is a pretty decent payout for the 3-leg slip. Like you can get 6x as the max payout on the 3-leg if you end up finding a combination that's favorable. But even the 5.5x is better than what you'd normally get for a 3-leg slip. Like for example, if instead of the Coke rack, like we had another over on birdies for the PGA side, it'd only be 4.75x, which is why if you want to try and get slightly better payout cards, you can try and take this strategy and mix in multiple events. And sure, it takes more work. You do have to break down the events and kind of know what to expect. I also do want to look at the birdie board. So 3.5 birdie average today was 3.26 per round, by the way. You can see that one right there. I think it might go up a little bit. And there are 4 par 5s out there. So I actually could see myself taking like an over on birdies for the right player at 3.5. Let's double check on the birdie percentage for Leishman. And then I also want to look at DJ for the year. DJ has obviously not had the best season, but I'm kind of curious where he ranks on this list. So let's see. Dustin Johnson is number 7 in birdie or better percentage. That's mighty fine tempting. He did chip in multiple times today, and he was also trying out a new putter. So maybe we stay away from that just because that is very sketchy. And he only got to 4 today despite multiple chip-ins. So yeah, that's going to actually be a stay away. It's a good thing we looked at that. Let me look at Mark Leishman, though. Where does he rank for the year? So he's number 21 in birdie or better percentage, which is, it's not terrible, but it's certainly not elite like I was hoping to see with Mark Leishman. Yeah, they didn't give us the best players to choose from here. Let's look at Abraham Answer. Let's look at Harold Varner's birdie percentage. No idea where Harold ranks. So Harold's number 22, and let's look at Answer as well. Answer's number 32 this year. Last year, the reason why I want to look at Answer, last year, go to 2024, Answer was a whole lot better. He was number 4 on tour in birdie or better percentage. So like, he's actually not out of play for an over still. He's a very accurate driver. He would play well around this sort of course. Let's look at Usti. Usti also last year. Usti much better on the Live Tour. Wasn't a lead or anything, but where was he at? Number 9 on tour in birdie or better percentage. This year, though, what does he rank? Yeah, 39. Has pretty much completely fallen off a cliff at this point. For the sake of the live stream slip, we are just going to go with these two on the PGA side. But of course, live golf stuff can also be very advantageous. And I would say based on what I'm seeing here, like fade value would be mostly the value here on the live side. But there were a few spots that you could take for positive stance plays. And like, I guess I'll point out a few of those that were like kind of standing out. I was like maybe a Bryson under at 70.5. I'm not 100% sure on that quite yet, but it's his home course. He plays at Merido all the time in Dallas. Like literally it's the course he plays the most out of any of the ones around him down there. And he shot like -4 today, I believe. So he backed that up with not only the narrative, but shooting a relatively low round. Oh, he must have given up a lot of shots towards the end, huh? Because I don't see him on there, or maybe I'm just blind and didn't see him the first time around. Where you at, Bryson? So yeah, he dropped off like a rock, actually. He was -3 through 12, which was when I stopped watching Bryson and played the last 3 holes at +3. So, yeah, I think the PGA props are going to be the way to go about this one. So that'll be it for the pick'em sites on Underdog and PrizePicks. Let me see if there's anything that you guys want me to deep dive down in the chat. If not, we're going to go through some matchups and try and run it back after another really good day on the matchup side. It's these 3 balls, they end up being a lot of fun. It is going to be 2 balls this time around because of the tee time situation, but we'll still try and find some value. Let's see. Of course, favorite 2 underdog props. Don't really have any now, Jack. I'll be posting some on Patreon later. So if you want those, you can find those there. But we're going to focus on matchups now because I've already given a solid like 40 minutes on the pick'em side. But on the matchups, I'm going to try and find some underdogs to play. I don't really like taking minus money players on these matchups. You can, especially if you're parlaying them and you can find a way to get some decent payouts. But for the most part, I try and find underdogs that I don't think should be underdogs. And the first few matchups I've gone through, I haven't really seen that yet. Ben Coles versus Hostler might be one, though. So let's actually bring up the matchup tool and use that to go through these. So let's put in Hostler first. And we're going to use the full event stats. We're not just going to use round 2. We're going to use rounds 1 and 2 so that we can break this down. And let's put in Ben Coles, who's going against Hostler and who's also plus money. And you can see why I like the Ben Cole side. Coles beats him off the tee by about a stroke per round, and he beats him by over 1.2 strokes per round with his approach play. So short game clearly favors Hostler. That's why they're about the same score at this point of the week. But I would say that the stat profile certainly favors the Ben Cole side of things. And neither one's been playing good golf lately. So the fact that you're getting him at plus 100, I wish he was like plus 110, to be honest. If he was plus 110, I'd be a lot more willing to take that. But actual even money doesn't feel like enough because, like, in terms of career pedigree, Hostler has done a lot more than Coles has. So, like, I kind of understand why he's the slight favorite there. But you would think as the slight favorite that maybe we'd get like plus 105, plus 110 on Coles. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So let's see what else we can find. I'm sure there's some other plays that can make sense, including this one that I actually think could be one that we enter. So let's put this in there. It's Eckroat versus Goddard, who I believe both went to Oklahoma schools. One went to Oklahoma State, one went to Oklahoma. So perhaps a little bit of a rivalry brewing. But Austin Eckroat, the much better approach player this week. Off the tee play needs to get fixed for Austin. Today he was missing almost all of his tee shots to the right. That can't happen again. But if he cleans up the off the tee play, I mean, his approach play has been great, gaining about 0.84 shots gained per round over the first few rounds. Putting's been about the same around the green. You can kind of throw it out. It's a birdie fest. I'm not really that worried about how players are chipping it when you're at a golf course. That's so easy. Yeah, Eckroat at that plus 110. So that's the difference here, right? Coles was still plus 100. And I thought he should be at least plus 110. Getting plus 110 on Eckroat, I actually think he should be the favorite over Goddard. So I would back that one quite a bit. On Hard Rock Bet, it is going to be a slightly different market. So on a Hard Rock Bet, they have these two balls on they have the tie included too. That's just how they format them in a Hard Rock Bet. So if I can get plus 120 or more odds on Eckroat, I'll be adding that myself. Let's see who else is on here. So Ventura Salinda, kind of a toss-up. I think Cam Young's going to win against Norlander, but I'm not paying minus 170. Just no way in hell. Let's look at Lauer versus Whaley, because Whaley is not a world killer. I always think he's a little bit overrated. And I know Lauer hasn't been playing that well lately, but Lauer's been decent all year, especially early this year. Justin Lauer was a very popular play. And this week, Lauer's been killing it on approach, gaining over a stroke per round. Yeah, that's going to be another one I like. I'm not sure he should be the underdog, and he's a whole plus 130. I don't think that there's any chance in hell that Whaley should be minus 165 in that sort of matchup. So I like that one. Let's look at Wallace Valimaki. That's another one where I'm not so sure that the rightful favorite is the favorite. So Valimaki's the underdog, and I think that he could be the better play. And he's the better approach player. It's not by much, though, right? Only 0.15 shots gained per round. So, yeah, that one's a little bit closer to 50-50. So we're going to leave it with these two for now. Those two were slightly better value. So let's stick with the ones that we feel really good about. On a lot of those ones are just kind of toss-ups, or at least I agree with the kind of odds that we're seeing in a lot of those cases. Yeah, like I would like to bet Højgaard to win, but minus 155, I'm just not going to do that. I don't like betting those big favorites. Usually it's closer to 50-50 than what they're giving it credit for. That's also why I like the underdogs too, right? I think that they're usually closer to 50-50 than the sports books are giving them credit for. Bacardi's had a really good putting week. I would say in a vacuum that I think he's about the same kind of player as Rio, but unfortunately the stats this week aren't very favorable for Mats. They're more so favorable towards Rio. Hodges Bridgman about even money. Let's look at that one. I know Bridgman's been, he's minus 11. He's having a good week very clearly, but let's see exactly how he's doing it. So Bridgman, 1.3 shots gained approach per round and losing off the tee. Hodges has been better over the first two rounds. So yeah, it's a stay away spot for sure. Woodland Grazerman. Yeah, Grazerman should probably be the slight favorite there. Griffin Hideki, believe it or not, Griffin probably should be the favorite at this point with how well he's been playing over the last few months. Let's look at Potgieter Hubbard. That could be one, because I think that that's pretty much a 50-50, and Potgieter is plus 100. And I bet Potgieter to the top 5, top 10 this week, and I played him in like a quarter of my DFS lineups. So I'm obviously very high in his chances. So Potgieter Hubbard, let's put them apples to apples and see exactly what we've got. So there's Pot Guider. Let's put Mark Hubbard in there as well. Homeless Hubs, as some would call him. So off the tee play, clearly favoring Aldrich. That's a no-brainer. But approach play is about 50-50 on both of them. So, I mean, these stat profiles are about as close as we could possibly get. So if that's the case, let's look at the form heading in, which we can actually do with this matchup tool here. So let's go last 20. Let's do 24 rounds like they have on here, actually. I think that's a pretty decent sample size for this. And let's see. So off the tee favors Pot Guider. Approach plays also pretty close to 50-50. And yeah, across the board, it's pretty close to 50-50. Let's go to the last 12 rounds. Let's see if we like really narrow it in, if it favors one side versus the other. And it does. You can see the smaller sample size that we use here. Pot Guider becomes more of the favorite. He's gaining in the 2 ball striking categories, as opposed to Hubbard, who's about a neutral when you combine the 2 ball striking categories. So yeah, that's another one that we'll mix in. So 3+ money matchups that I think should be favored the other way around. The most egregious is for sure this Justin Lauer one. I mean, like, I don't understand the love for Vince Whaley. And let's look at the finishes, for goodness sakes. Like, why do all the sports books, why do all the people that play DFS seem to think that this guy is like some world killer when he's not? I mean, let's look at the finishes. Charles Schwab T11, that's as good as it's really gone. The T15, I guess, too, like, sure. But even then, that's not an optimal play in DFS. And these are like kind of weaker field events, right? T7 at Corrales, but that was an alternate field event. And then look at all these missed cuts. Like, sure, T16, but that was an alternate field event. And then a lot of these missed cuts. I know now that I'm picking on the guy and pointing that out, he'll probably end up beating Justin Lauer's ass, but there's no reason that he should be plus 130. So those will be the 3 matchups that we take for round number 3. Of course, guys, for every single piece of exposure that I'm getting to, you guys can find that over there on the Patreon page. I'm posting every single price picks and underdog slip as I enter them over there. And not only the stuff that I enter tonight for round 3, but also anything that is entered live tomorrow. And I think it's going to be a really big slate for some live betting on PGA. And maybe not so much like live betting, but after we get the news on that lift, clean, and place, because that is going to be probably a whole half a stroke difference right there. And if it's lift, clean, and place, which I would be surprised by, I personally don't think they're going to do it for tomorrow. But if they do go lift, clean, and place, I mean, there would be some really good undervalue for some of these strokes. So keep an eye out for that news. I'll probably tweet out something tomorrow morning when we get that news, and maybe how that'll impact the averages and how you should approach that kind of slate. But the Patreon page is the place to be for all of that exposure this evening, as well as for all the matchups I end up entering too, because these are the odds on DraftKings, right? They're going to be somewhat similar to what I get on Hard Rock Bet, but in some cases, the odds might be better or worse on the Hard Rock Bet side. So make sure to tune in over there and on the Discord channel for every single matchup in 3-ball that I enter for tomorrow. But that's all I've got, guys. I appreciate all the support you guys show here on the channel. Smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and also subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. Just like we did here for Moving Day, round 4, I'm going to be doing a live stream tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, getting you ready for all of the action on Sunday. So hopefully we can cash out on that 2-leg slip, any of the other exposure that we add on the Patreon page. And Sunday, we'll be trying to run it back on top of that. So subscribe so you guys don't miss when we go live. On the Patreon page as well, I not only do all the prop stuff that you guys could see there, that's all the stat averages, the weather that I was showing you guys before, but also all the DFS stuff as well. So on my Patreon page, I've got my entire player pool, projected ownership, projected points for the entire field. And the thing that people really love about my showdown content is that I don't just give you guys, a core, my plays, etc. for any given slate, but I also go through all the reasoning on why I'm on my plays. So I can really give you guys a peek behind the process for why I'm getting to certain players. And you can see, like, there's ball striking poppers, short game regression candidates, course history, and high upside players mixed in. And towards the top, we've got one of each of the 4 categories that's on there, right? Like Collins hitting the absolute cover off the ball. I love that for him. Cantlay couldn't buy a putt today. I'm playing him for a little bit of a bounce back. Keegan Bradley makes a lot of birdies, right? Hence why we took the over 5.5 birdies, right? Makes a lot of sense. Why he would be a high upside player in my player pool. He's in the top 50 of the birdie or better rankings. And then course history too. Cam Young has a T2 and a T6 around this golf course. So for the rest of the player pool, for all of my projections, you can find that on the Patreon page too, as well as all the prop slips that I was mentioning. But that's all I've got, guys. Best of luck with all of your exposure for the next day. And I'll see you guys for the round 4 live stream.